You can view the video of this podcast on Jazz Cabbage's YouTube or Facebook pages. Jazz Cabbage Café presents stories about and an interview with Ed Rosenthal. All right, so here's what I want to do. I want Uncle Stoner right now to give us his best Ed Rosenthal story. Do you have an Ed Rosenthal story?
Oh, what about the...
We're going to start doing this before Ed comes on. That's, I think, more entertaining for our audience.
Giant
I
hit,
can't participate.
the giant hit.
The one
time
that Ed, when Ed was at
when Ed did that dab and
he bent over to grab his books, and Lawrence Chernak, the writes a great books of hash, thought it'd be funny to goose Ed, give him a goose. Was not so funny.
While he was taking a dab.
Ed, never seen Ed get a little bit mad, but he didn't lose it. Oh, that big old dab. I know that dab that he took, big old dab about this long, hanging to my thumb, just dabbing them out at your booth, at Rory's booth. Was that your booth, right, Rory?
What was that? In my booth? Yeah. I have video of that.
So how about you, Rory? What's your best Ed Rosenthal story? Since Adam seems to want to beg off, I'm not going to talk about it. He says.
Oh, I can tell stories. You want me to tell stories?
Let's give Rory a chance. Good. Yeah, your best Rosenthal story.
I'm like Adam.
Oh, come on.
All right.
I don't want to make Ed look, silly. I mean, I could tell you stories about almost getting into a fight, and I had to break it up between Ed and someone else.
Those are all the things he wouldn't want to talk about.
Yeah.
List some more of the stuff he wouldn't want to talk about. That'd be great.
This is the best Ed story. I just picked him up at the airport, and we drove back and dropped off all this stuff at the hotel. And I was taking him to go see a nice grow, and we get pulled over for speeding. And the cop is like looking at us, and he asks me, and he asks Ed, what's his name? And he's just like looking at us. And between the two of us, we had nothing on us. You got a dispensary and Ed Rosenthal. And we had nothing in the car.
Wow.
We were laughing about it afterwards. It's just how unreal that was.
That should be unusual.
And that was in Ann Arbor too.
Oh no, because you're normally packing. So
yeah. Oh, usually.
Aren't we all? Yeah. I have a quick Ed Rosenthal story. It was really kind of formative for me. This was maybe 2010 or 11, and there was a protest on the Michigan State Capitol building steps. I went out with, I think, Sharmy and Chuck Ream, and I remember, or maybe, I don't know who I went out there with, but I rode back with Chuck and Ed, because Chuck was taking Ed to the airport, and I was like 19 at the time, and Ed's rolling these, hog leg sized joints of, like
Ed, where are you?
Something grape, but yeah, I just was getting so high and having these two dudes.
Yeah, we're all waiting for you.
So much institutional history about cannabis.
All right, Ed's gonna be with us in a second.
Yeah, we can hear him on the phone, Rory.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll stop then.
No,
Bobby,
Nick, finish out. Go
Bobby,
ahead.
there's like a giant bud behind you. Move your head for a
That was
second.
more or less all there was to my story, but it wasn't
Dig it.
ride with both those two for such a young guy.
So I remember, just not that's a huge thing, but like of course Rory's been helping facilitate bringing Ed out to Michigan.
Oh, a couple times.
A lot of times, yeah. And one of those times a few years ago was at that what used to be the Clarion, whatever it's called now.
Wyndham Gardens.
In Wyndham, in that little auditorium thing. And while he was giving his presentation, I ended up getting a text that one of the first major credible polls revealed over 50% support for full legalization from nationally. So the first time we reached that threshold, I happened to be, listening to a presentation.
I remember you telling me that there.
And then I was just recently going over some online staff training stuff with Americans for Safe Access, and some of the legal discussion brings up these several court cases. And one of them was Ed's case from 2007, in which part of it, I believe anyway, and I kind of wanted to hear him talk about it possibly, is that it was revealed that the federal agents were acting vindictively toward him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm interested to hear about that one.
I can tell you that in 2015, I was in Denver, Colorado. We were doing a video project with Steve Green, a radio show that I was doing at the time. And we had a booth at the High Times Cannabis Cup out there. It was the first year it was legal in Denver at that time. And I saw Ed Rosenthal with a dab rig. And Ed Rosenthal challenged me to do a dab. And I actually did a bigger dab than Ed did. Now, since then, I've become a horrible wimp, and I can hardly take anything in at all. But back then, I was quite the chimney, and it was a fun experience. And he was so gracious, really.
So I'll tell you a story since he's not here yet, and this will get him here. So Ed shared with me some photos of a bud called Creeper. Not Creeper like you smoke it in 20 minutes or an hour later you get high, but Creeper the way it creeped down a hill. And it was the most amazing weed plant I'd ever seen. You know how when you stick a thing into a computer, it asks if you want to copy it or just view or whatever? So in the spook book, the one thing it tells you is whenever you have this opportunity, you always hit copy. So it opened up the file and we looked at it and it copied all these photos to my hard drive. And for years I had pictures of this really cool plant that I'd never knew what happened to it. I've never seen it out there. Nobody's promoting this thing. And I've got pictures on a disc somewhere, because of course that's where it landed, of this. And I want to ask Ed about this creeper weed because I never heard about it. And it was the type of thing that if you lived on a hillside or if you wanted to trellis something, this was perfect for that. It's how it grew. And,
oh my gosh, I love that.
I mean, this would be huge if we could sell this. And I want to ask Ed what happened to it because I snatched photos from it.
All right, here we go.
Ed and I have been around together for a long time. So I've got all kinds of crazy stories. But I wouldn't tell any of them. So.
We have been joined by the man. We're talking about him a lot, and now
told you
he has joined us, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome,
Ed. You can take the mask off.
Welcome, Ed.
Ed Rosenthal, thank you for joining us on Jazz Cabbage Cafe.
Hi, how you doing?
We're great.
Very good.
You have a lot of friends here today, Ed, that all decided to join us because you're here. Jamie, go ahead with your intro.
Nope, we're celebrating your history and this movement over the years and your contributions, and we'd like to hear from you on some of that and also what's going on currently and some views on your thoughts on the more current world of cannabis. And we have lots of friends here, and you requested some, and some of them heard you were coming on and wanted to join us.
Great. Well, I'm here, so let's do stuff.
All right.
That's a can-do attitude, Ed. Way to go.
That's a great plan. I like it. It's a solid plan.
So, Adam Brook was just talking about a question.
Everything has to stop for a moment. There's no cannabis on my desk.
Oh,
And
no.
All right, the world
That happened to me too. I go run them down and get some.
I'm not sure who your assistant is, Ed, but if you might need to hire you just a weed assistant to make sure you have weed and water.
Just to update all of our audio listeners, we have Jamie Lowell, Rick Thompson, Nick Zettell, Colin MacDougall, Berg from Medical Mondays, Shelly Smith, Derek Gauci, Professor Mike Whitty, Adam Brook, Rhory Gould, Uncle Stoner Bobby West, and the incomparable Debra Young joining us with Ed Rosenthal.
Okay, well, I just went to the dispensary, and here I just got the stuff. Oh, there it is. Wait, I mean, when I say the dispensary, my dispensary, my personal dispensary.
Sure.
I just saw a hand.
That's right.
What was in that hand?
That's what I was showing you, what I got from my personal dispensary.
I saw 4 fingers. Was it a count of 4 fingers?
No, I'm not smoking the
Good,
fingers.
Ed.
I don't smoke the fingers anymore, Rory. No, I use a pipe now. You know, Rory remembers when I would just put a little lighter fluid on the grass in my hand. And...
Oh, God.
Is that for real?
No.
Trying to find that video.
I want whoever was asking the question about the creeper plant, I am super
I'll
curious.
ask Ed
I'm
that.
super curious.
That
Ed.
creeper was lost. You know, I gave it to 3
It was
people.
lost.
I gave it to 3 people, including Sensi Seed, and everybody lost it.
They
Well,
lost it?
What was it called? Did you have a name for it? What did you call it?
Creeper. Because what it did is it got about 2 feet high, and then the branches continued growing, but the branches went prostrate to the ground. So it just crept along the ground. It was a great plant. So it would spread out 10 feet.
It looks like a big bush.
Was that a ruderalis?
Not like a bush. It was like a creeper.
Well, like a creeper, right? It creeped, but it creeped on the ground like.
It was one layer. It didn't, you know, it was one layer along the ground, and it would stretch out to a 10-foot diameter or so. And
like a weeping willow or something?
Almost.
And the thing is, you know, this was a time when it was, you know, when there was more police activity. So police would be looking up, you know, at
the 6-foot level.
Yeah, or something. And it was on the ground. They could be walking on it and they wouldn't know it.
Maybe it was like a cross between a vine that runs along the ground and a cannabis plant.
Well, you know,
I feel like it's worth a shot.
It was 1958. Jack Herr and I invented cannabis by crossing a corn plant with a squash, and cannabis came out. And as you know, that was when cannabis came into being.
Yeah, everybody knows that story.
Sounds like the creeper might be part poison ivy.
Right, could be. I did
I
get
think
a
it's
tickle
worth
in
a
my
shot.
throat from it, so I don't know.
I want to try it.
Man, I'm interested in the case that I came across it just coincidentally, and some other like training stuff and some references to major court cases and things like that. And I was really interested in the fact that in your case from 2007, there's clearly states that you were acted vindictively against by the federal agents.
Yeah.
What's the story behind that?
They didn't like me.
Nice. We got a little bit more space to
That's it.
fill.
Case closed.
If you're
Interviewing.
Stretch, Ed, stretch. Yes.
Stretch it out, stretch it out.
Well, don't
That
forget
was
at
the
the
paper.
time.
Go off a
At
little
the
bit.
time, Ed was at the time. Ed was well known for testifying in court cases and participating in, you know, real big activism. So he was well known amongst the prohibitionists, you might say, especially the legal one.
Yeah, at a time when there are few voices, the loud ones.
They had
really
that video of me, and they had a video of me, and that they used in their fundraising. You know, I don't know, one of the groups like the one that was at 666 Fifth Avenue. Well, anyway, one of the anti-organizations had a video of me that was that they used, and they also had Tony Serra on it. And with me, they said, so I was at a conference, and the Harvard professor Grinspoon had just given a speech about, and it was a very touching speech about how his son, who had leukemia and ultimately died from it, but got tremendous relief by using marijuana before taking the radiation therapy and other therapies. And I got up and I was the next speaker, and I got up and I totally changed my speech, and I described how I too was a medical marijuana patient, and I used it as a preventative for eye disease. So the thing about it was, we didn't know whether I would catch these eye diseases if I gave it up. So I couldn't afford to give it up for fear that I would go blind.
Preemptively, you had to smoke cannabis, or else you possibly could go blind.
We call that the prophylactic effect.
Yeah. And, I gave this speech, where, I just explained that, and the whole audience started laughing.
Yes.
I don't know why they were laughing when I was talking about using it prophylactically, but anyway, they all started laughing, and that's what went out. Then the organization had some commentary about it, and they totally ignored that people were laughing. They showed this as how this was a total scam, So, but I did I was a scourge on the marijuana prohibitionists. They didn't do well with me. I was once on a show with Ted Nugent that he walked off the show.
He went when I was in prison. I was sitting in a prison cell listening to the Jackson morning show, and he was on. Ted Nugent came on the Jackson morning show, and it was a week before Hash Bash, and he just railed about the people that went to Hash Bash and how stupid stoners were and blah blah blah.
Did he give the address and where it was and everything?
Oh yeah, he promoted the shit out of it.
Love it.
And,
Thank you.
Right, and I mean, the funny thing is, he goes after us every year. He's an easy target. He's got the same nonsense over and over and over about weed.
He's a cliche.
So Ed, we have a few people listening and watching right now, and Joshua says that Ask Ed is the first cultivation education that he ever got. And Susan says that she loves you. So just to keep you updated on some of the response there.
I'm looking for a second wife, so.
There you go.
That's nothing new.
Love you long.
Wow.
mean another wife? Or
not necessarily in that context, but we'll, if it works.
Hey, Bobby.
Oh, yeah.
Who set
you don't know what Susan had in mind. You don't know.
Your wife? Bobby. Who set you up with your wife?
You did. You introduced me to her.
Shameless self-praise. Way to go, Rhory.
Rhory, I didn't know you offered matchmaking services.
I don't know. I somehow do it. I don't
He
know how.
does every day. He introduces people to nice, beautiful females.
I know he does.
We got to hang out more.
Then they get married.
No,
We don't got to hang out
They
more.
don't get married.
They get smoked. Yes.
Could I just shift gears? Could you tell us how we can help the little people, the mom and pop shops, the people that have been left behind, how we can protect medical marijuana's profile? I mean, you're one of the critical but important voices dissenting against overregulation and big canna, but how do we help the little people that we grew up with and supplied us the gray market, and indeed just the medical profile that has become more and more credible. What can we do to lean a little bit back to our origins and not let us be swept up into some kind of 7-Eleven version of cannabis legalization?
Well, I think, you
It's
know,
happening to me right now.
in Grower's Handbook, I talk about the tomato model, and that there are corporations and companies and farmers of all different sizes selling tomatoes. Like there were some 6-inch people. They were only about this big. Those were the small people selling tomatoes. And then there were much larger people selling tomatoes. But anyway, these, so, and you know, you can even get to the point where people have a little box of tomatoes in their front yard and they say leave $2 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's in tomatoes, there's a possibility for people at all levels and businesses at all levels to participate in the tomato market. And I think that it's the same way with cannabis. And
Amen. Yeah.
yeah, and there's room for everybody in the market. And you know what? I want to say that the most important thing is not the farmer. You know who the most important person in this is? It's the consumer.
Right.
Consumer. And I'm more, even though I work with farmers, I'm more interested in the consumer. That people who want to use marijuana have easy access to it at a reasonable price. And that's what I'm looking for.
Well, and the preservation of home cultivation, because, you know, home cultivation is so crucial to most people's health cycle.
Yeah, well, you know, in the book, I also mentioned that using marijuana may or may not be habit forming, but growing marijuana is addictive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
listen,
that's your most truthful statement in the book.
That's right. Listen to that.
And
I'm a mom and pop.
What?
My place is a mom and pop.
Yeah. Well, it's a pop.
It's a pop, right? We won't get into that.
Right now, we're not licensed.
Hey, nobody's going to judge you, Rory. You can be both nowadays. It's 2021, man. So
I'm still not licensed.
Be the mom and the pop, Billy.
Just declare how you identify.
I'm the pop.
Right.
So, Captain Kirk says hello from Oklahoma.
Hello to Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Captain.
I have to say, one of the coolest things I ever saw, Ed showed me, was Ed had taken me to a grow where they were testing nutrient setups. And there were all these rows of plants, 4 plants in a row, and like tons of rows. And each row had a different nutrient makeup. And on the wall, there were all these colored dots. And on the wall were all these dots and a key that told you what nutrients were being grown. And he says, here, get on this ladder and look around and tell me which one was the best. And when you looked around, you realized quickly that all because it was the tallest didn't mean it was the best or the bush, you know. And anyways, it was a really neat grow. And to me, it just showed the passion that the guy had for plants and growing and learning and education and all that. So I always like to tell people that to me was the coolest thing. And when I say there were nutrients on the wall, there was every nutrient you can think of that was in the grow shop at the time in that stuff. It was kind of cool. So I respect his energy for the plant. You know, for years he's been known as the guru of ganja. I mean, it's as old school as you get. So I've always respected Ed.
Well, I think you're right. I'm working on a new version of Grower's Handbook. It's going to be called Cannabis Grower's Handbook. And I'm working with Professor Rob Flannery, who is also a cannabis, commercial cannabis grower, and he has a degree in plant biology. And we're working with, collaborating with many other writers, and some of them, Danny Danko, Remo, others, they're all represented in the book. And we also have different plant scientists and who have been helping us. So the book will be out in September. And so going to, we've been doing a lot of research on it. And when I say research, primary research that hasn't been done before in terms of cannabis. And so we'll have a lot of interesting things. For one thing, what we've done is trace the amount of THC in flowers over the last 3 weeks, and the amount of terpenes on every other day basis.
You I assume are a believer in that the terpene profile means more than the THC content?
Well, you don't usually get too high without the THC.
Correct, but you don't need the highest THC. You need a better terpene profile, correct?
Well, you know, a lot of the edibles just have THC. They don't have terpenes in them. And so I would say it really depends that you're going to get more personality and a different high if you're using terpenes as well.
Ed, now our listeners on Spotify and on Alexa may not know why the medibles wouldn't contain terpenes, and it's all about the processing. Could you explain that to our listeners?
Well, in some processes, especially processes dealing with heat, the terpenes are often they're wafted away. So, like if you're cooking with marijuana and you're boiling soup with it or something, the terpenes might, or for a while, the terpenes might just drift out of the soup or out of the water solution, I should say. So you're not always and there are other reasons why there might not be terpenes, depending upon the method that you use to concentrate the THC. It depends also whether you're concentrating the THC or extracting it. If you're extracting it, it's much less likely to have terpenes in it.
Thank you. So, I'm sorry, but your new book, is that going to be released in brick and mortar stores on that date, or is it going to be released through Amazon on that date, or a combination? What's the plan?
Yeah, it should be. It should be in both stores and on Amazon. Yeah.
I've seen your stuff at Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
I believe they have a growing cultivation section. They have maybe 20 different magazines in their magazine rack specifically devoted to the industry. So it's gaining more and more popularity. And of course, you have one of the more enduring names in the cultivation sphere. Yeah,
well, we plan on having a continuous update to this in terms of what's going to happen on our site.
On your website, the supporting the book?
Yes.
What is that web address?
Hasn't been determined yet. When the book comes out, when the new book comes out, it will have its web address.
Can I ask a question before I have to go of Ed?
Please do.
Okay. Ed, my name is Shelly, and I do a podcast called Reeds and Weeds, and would love to have a tiny group of growers read one or two of the books. And if you could pop on and say hi to us. What we do on the show is we smoke weed and read books. It's like a weed smoking book club. So I would love it. I would love to stay in touch with you so that when we do your book, you can pop in. Maybe the new book that's coming out, we could do that one. Or I just want permission to stay in touch with you for the possibility of doing something.
Of course, no problem.
Okay.
Just speak with Rhory about it.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Cool.
Shelly, thanks for being with us. And I know you've got to beg out early, but we appreciate your presence today and enjoy your afternoon.
That's very cool. And it is a cool show too. So
it really is. Colin is waving vigorously at you. So.
Yeah, and she smashed a printer over the weekend, if you didn't see.
She got frustrated with it not behaving properly and decided to
chug it from the second floor.
Have a mind of their own.
People versus electronics. Usually electronics win. So, Ed, what have you learned? I mean, over all the years, lately there's been a lot of technology. LEDs are coming into play. There's a lot of new things. What's been new in your garden lately?
I'm using a lot of plant growth stimulators.
Explain that, please.
Sure.
Well, there are natural hormones and enzymes that plants produce, and you can enhance those in the plants. And they're totally plant products. They don't have anything to do with animals, and so you can get bigger growth out of that. And I'm playing with those, and they'll all be in the book.
Oh, very cool.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Hey, so Ed, may I talk? Hey, so Ed, like what we've been doing here in Jamaica, because there's hard to find some good nutrients out there and stuff. So we've been taking banana pills, aloe vera, mango pills, coconut water, and making like a tea, and maybe lightly boiling at least all the fruit and stuff and leaves and rinds together, and making a kind of like a tea with all that different stuff to get the enzymes out and feeding our plants. Is it okay to actually boil it? Because it seems like that's the only way we've been able to get it out is by boiling it a little bit, not overdoing it, but just enough to draw out some of the nutrients, natural nutrients of the rinds and whatnot.
Yeah, I guess you could boil it. You know what else? You know what you're missing from it. You don't have any nitrogen in there.
I got burnt coal, burnt wood, charcoal. So I've been using now. Doesn't charcoal have some nitrogen in it or no?
No.
Oh.
No, it has potassium.
Okay. What would I get from where would I get the nitrogen? Yeah.
The nitrogen? Well, you could use urine.
Okay.
Oh, Bobby will love that.
No, my wife will love that. Hey, honey. We need to start using urine in our.
It will be just as if you're on. It will be just like you're on probation.
Could you mail him some? Seriously,
hey, Bobby, I'll
it will
send
be
some
just
in your
like being
care
on
package.
probation. You'll be putting into a cup.
I've got a question. Is your urine specialty?
Volume, but I don't want to be the guy holding that cup, I tell you.
Well, I remember Soma back in the day talking about peeing on his plants, actually, and peeing on his seeds.
Yeah, but that's a whole different thing with Soma.
Okay, that.
No, well, that
more of a ritual than science.
No, that was supplying psychedelic nutrients to his plants.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, what about cat?
Soma has psychedelic urine, is right.
Now, this cat here we have sometimes will pee on our plants. Is that the same thing, or does it have to be human? Sorry, my wife had the torch going. Now, can it be animal piss?
Well, listen, you're going to answer that question. Do you think that human and cat urine is super different?
Probably not too much. Yeah.
Well, then you answered your question.
Yeah, true. Yeah, thank you, Ed.
And then what happens to the plant will ultimately confirm whatever the answer is.
It smells like cat
you
piss.
should make sure, you should make sure to use you should make sure to use a ppm meter.
Yeah.
You do not do this as a foliage spray.
Operative word is PP.
Do it as a
Especially
foliage spray,
when the
and animals won't
when the
come too
fans
near
are
it.
on too.
You know, if you do it as a foliage spray, animals will avoid it.
Right.
Oh man, I don't know if I want to smoke it like that.
Yeah. Not the insects, but the herbivores will.
Right.
Of course, yeah. Okay. Thank you. I told him about the tea.
Bobby, did you get a good answer out of all that?
Yeah.
Excuse
me, I gotta go.
Well,
I gotta
you
give
know,
my plants some nitrogen.
He's got to go talk to his wife about peeing on the plants.
I can hear you, Adam.
My
My
wife
wife
right
right
here.
You know,
It's
Soma
Jamaica,
is
anything
now
goes,
selling his
right?
urine. You know that, right?
What's that?
Soma is selling his urine.
Oh no.
Yeah, in East Europe, because people there can't afford, you know, to buy the drug, so they just, I don't know, they refine his urine.
I mean, I've left 5 toads today, and
Just
now
still it out. Yeah.
For the record, Colin, see murder. You need to get to Amsterdam to meet Soma. He would be life changing for you.
Explain for our listeners who that is, Adam.
Oh, Soma's an old head. What his claim to fame is many. He was an expat who went to Amsterdam and eventually was pushing Soma's seeds, and everyone was a big fan. I forgot what his big strain was. Ed, what was?
Amnesia, the Amnesia Haze, the Lavender,
Right.
Reclining Buddha.
Oh, that whole
Laughing
strain,
Buddha.
that whole highway came from him.
Good memory,
Well,
Bobby.
Yeah.
Serious.
Nice.
You know, I got a lot of strains from him back, and I've known him for over 20 years. Same with Adam. You know, we all, some of us met over in Amsterdam. I think one of the first time I met Ed was over in Amsterdam. You know, a lot of us, that was the Mecca. Then is where to go. Is Amsterdam. You know.
You know, they're closing down the coffee shops. They're saying
they're talking about it.
Dude, I just got done redoing that Strain Hunters too. That's
hold on. They're talking about it, and the way things happen there's a good chance that's never going to happen.
No,
because
it is going to happen.
They're
it's
getting,
going to happen.
Why do
you? You know what? It's like this. The guy who's organizing it, a guy named Wilder, he's a super nationalist, much like Trump, and he's appealing to the people in Eastern Holland who are more conservative and more religious than the people in Amsterdam, and that's what they want. And so,
correct. But the city of Amsterdam is going to push back because of their tourism.
No, they have a right-wing mayor.
Oh, I know they do, but the tourism industry is starting to respond.
Oh, but wait a second. I think that I disagree with you about the tourist industry. Let me explain.
Okay.
What about the prostitutes?
Well, first of all, you know that
Priorities.
Central Amsterdam has a limited amount of space.
Right.
It can't build up. So whatever space it has is finite. So when things started, Amsterdam wasn't a big tourist spot. So the hippies came and they filled up all the cheaper hotels, and they brought money to the casual eating spots and everything, and they bought pot and everything. But the money was not going to the people who run the country.
Right, it was dark money.
The money was going to these people who the establishment didn't particularly like. You know, so since then, what's happened is how Amsterdam has become a really, really big tourist city.
Oh,
and
yeah.
if they have a limited amount of space, they say, screw the hippies, screw the young tourists. We want the diamond buyers. We want the fur buyers. We want the people who want to spend more money. So we're going to take these 1-star and 2-star hotels, and we're going to make them into boutique hotels. And that's what they've been doing. And they don't want you there. Please don't come. We don't want you. That is their notice. Why don't you go to Barcelona or something? Leave us alone. And you think of Amsterdam as a center city, but
no, I realize it's not. I'm just saying that
and the people outside the center city don't particularly want you there.
No, I realize that whole lower end tourism thing. I'm just saying that I think that the coffee shop organization that's there is willing to say, all right, get rid of that, but allow our people to still do what we do, and just with some more restriction, like less terrace space.
What they're doing is that they're closing 90 coffee shops.
Right. They just keep shrinking and shrinking.
Yeah. And the great preponderance of those are the ones that are not owned by North Europeans.
Really?
Yeah, like they're either Moroccan owned or they're owned by, Italians or whatever.
So this is nationalism, sort of. It's sort of nationalism in the way they're selecting who they let to win. They let to lose.
That's how the Dutch are.
No, but you see, the thing is, it's not that. It's that they're going, well, if we go after the Moroccans and those other fringe coffee shops, nobody will care. Like nobody will say anything. So we'll go after those first. Then there'll be only a smaller group. So like, and these coffee shop owners, they're not necessarily benevolent people. So, they're closing 90 coffee shops, more for me, So there are a lot of different factors in it. And the thing of it is that the Dutch, what people experienced in the 70s through 2000, that was a result of World War II.
Right.
And the parents who had been so scared, and these people broke out in 67, and it went on for a generation or two. But the Dutch are basically, I'd say, middle-class bourgeois people who, just want to run their lives, and they're tolerant of others, but you didn't see Dutch people in the coffee shops that much.
No,
it wasn't Dutch people hanging out. It was a tourist thing. So, listen, that coffee shop will be. I've seen it with, over and over in Amsterdam. The coffee shops get replaced, and the businesses that replace them, they do business. So, and the Dutch, they're tired of it. They'd rather have wealthy tourists.
Would they? I mean, do we really believe that there's a correlation between lack of coffee shops and increase in the affluence of the tourist trade?
Well, they raise the quality of the cheap hotels, and they make them into boutique hotels or apartments or something. So.
And they've limited all the bed
and what they replace it with is, these tourists who can buy diamonds and other jewels and clothing. They have a whole clothing sections now.
You can definitely tell a difference in the last 20 years in Amsterdam.
It's like this discussion
has become geared towards a tourist market, but a different tourist market than it used to be.
Look what they did to Museum Square. How they made that into a whole pedestrian park.
Right.
I mean, a big park. See that they don't want people smoking dope there.
It seems like this discussion has been going on for a long time. Is this the
It's
closest it's gotten?
It has been.
It's not even a discussion between all the different governments, this has been a consistent policy. Some do it softer, some harder, but each time another notch on the chain is
the enforcement priority decision by whoever happens to be in control at the time.
And well, but the Christian conservatives have been running Holland for a while, either both at the national level and then eventually the mayors and whatnot of Amsterdam. And they're not Christian conservatives like we think in the United States. It's that's just what they're called. But they are more of a conservative party, where you know, I see some of the things they do and we laugh that some of the shit is like very Dutch. It's just like their own way of doing things. And they shut down all kinds of stuff for all kinds of.
I mean, it's saying right here. I mean,
they're shutting down the red light.
Right.
Shutting down the red light district.
That's one of the things, right? They're trying to turn the red light district into what it was before it was a tourist trap.
No, no, they want to make it into the red light museum.
Right. Well,
no action.
Get rid of.
No action.
Right.
Just shows.
Right.
So Berg, what were you reading about the?
I mean, they submitted last Friday that they're submitting that Amsterdam, and they're trying to restrict the tourists from actually going to coffee shops. They're trying.
Right. They've been proposing that for years, and they're finally.
Yeah, I mean, Friday they submitted all kinds of paperwork for it. So.
Right, but so that already happens in a lot of the border cities. They've done away with, you have to have a passport to purchase in a lot of the coffee shops that are in the bordering cities of Holland.
Now, I would do something, if I was the mayor of one of those towns, I'd do something a little different. I'd pass a law that if you want to buy pot, you have to go to the coffee shop, you know, to get it. And the coffee shop has to be the furthest store from the parking lot in the mall.
Right. That's right.
They're slowly making it so people don't go there.
Well, no, numbers are bigger than ever, Rhory, but not of potted people.
What's that?
Numbers of tourists in Amsterdam are larger than ever, just not pot people.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
The museum goers, the
pot people to go somewhere else. They don't want it.
Barcelona. Everybody,
right.
People are drifting to Barcelona and Madrid, but especially Barcelona. But
pretty soon, I think Mexico's going to be a hot spot.
The other thing is, Amsterdam lost its importance once Dennis opened the first dispensary.
Right.
From that time on, its importance went, became less and less.
You're referring to Dennis Perone in California when they opened the first dispensary. And that would be the only American dispensary you could go to. And prior to that, you had to go to Amsterdam.
To buy over the counter.
Or your dealer. But
or
look at this. Look at this. I want to mention something about that. So Dennis opened, in 1974, California passed the decrim law. So simple possession was just a fine. So in order for that to affect you, from 74, you would, let's say you really came in contact with pot, let's say when you were 15. So that would mean that you would have been born in 59. So anybody who has been born in 59 in California never saw the full impact of prohibition. Only partial. And then in 96, when it became legal for medical, that was another diminution. So we take 1959, right? That's 41 years in the 20th century and 20 years now, right? So you'd have to be 61 years old if you were living in California, to over 61, to understand the full effects of prohibition. as opposed to Oklahoma, which now has the most liberal laws in the U.S. as far as cannabis, anyway.
I think Oklahoma actually takes buffalo pelts as payment for their dispensary fees. Now they're so inexpensive to get into.
It's ridiculous. When I was there last year, and literally every corner it seemed like had a dispensary on it in Oklahoma City. It was.
I really like
so many of them.
the participation of many small farmers there. Of course, under emergency rules, we had a version of that for a while, but
sounds like Colorado.
But that system's working there, right?
Yeah, it was working here
A
too.
long time ago.
Right. Well, yeah, but our system, they changed the rules on it.
Well, there's a snapshot right now. Is a snapshot in time. We'll see how that completely open market. I mean, look at Oregon.
If I was starting out now, I'd move to the Oklahoma Panhandle for a few years.
Right.
You know.
Explain why, Ed.
Well, you know, the Panhandle is a very thin area between two states that are where it's illegal. So people are likely to seek out legal, inexpensive pot from Oklahoma, right?
Right.
So if you're in the Panhandle, it's a good place to be.
Location, location, location.
Everybody around you has prohibition except for you.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe the far end of the Panhandle.
Oh, getting
I've thought about
I don't
that.
know about populations, though. I go where the population is. Yeah.
I've thought about that with Michigan. There is a small part of Monroe County that you can only access by driving through Ohio. It's called, I think, Lost Peninsula, I think is what it's called. But you have to go through Toledo to actually get to this part of Michigan. And the people who live there are Michigan residents, but they're not connected by the mainland at all. And I thought that'd be a good place for a dispensary, you know, essentially in Ohio.
Yeah.
You would have to drive. You would have to drive through Ohio to get home, man.
Why would you leave, bro?
for a recreational store for Ohioans, essentially.
Rhory, are you going to open up a drive-through store?
Not yet. They're coming.
There used to be one.
I would love to do that.
At your building? How would you make it set?
No, not at my building.
Oh, that would be tough.
Well, the department talks about making a formal change.
Drive-through restaurants that are closed down after this.
Why not? I mean, you could drive through and pick up your prescriptions, right?
Well, it never should have been
specifically mentioned in the law. That's why.
It never should have been restricted in the first place. And so it does require like an actual amendment to make it so, but the department has been talking about that. So hopefully that happens.
They realize it makes sense.
There is curbside going on now.
Maybe the people would have to get out of their car, walk up to the window that's right there, get their stuff, go back into the car, drive away.
I don't even think they'll allow that at this point. Walk up service.
Right now, the
curbside service is allowed.
Okay, we have curbside right now, where they can drive up. We bring it to them in the parking lot. It used to be against the law.
But that's also a temporary thing.
Those kind of hand transfers got so many people in trouble. That a hand transfer is exactly what that is.
So that's
many people
the curbside. The curbside started off being temporary as part of the emergency rules, but it's going to last now. The director has said is going to keep it. Yeah.
Yes.
Drive-through is just same thing.
I don't think that you should be able to have a handoff like that. I think you should have to use robots like robots
AI
to deliver it to the car.
No drones.
So my argument
units.
Really long tubes that you know, like pneumatics. Shoot them.
My thing was I wasn't comfortable with curbside. First of all, I'm not buying from a dispensary, but if I was going to buy from a dispensary, I'd want to meet the guy at the corner and kind of like, you know, hand-to-hand deal. I'd feel much more comfortable.
Make it more sinister, yeah.
I will tell you that
maybe they could put two walls and a corner in the parking lot. And you could
throw some garbage on the ground. Yeah. Make it authentic.
Very 70s, 80s thing.
Couldn't quite do the model. Yeah, that'd be cool.
But
Mod Squad theme music playing.
In Lansing, the Common approach is curbside right now. Even places that can have their lobby open don't, and just
Don't.
just
They
set up.
do curbside.
We are a botanical company. We're one of the few places where people can come into the lobby.
I think curbside makes a lot of sense.
Some people prefer it, but many people want to come into the lobby too.
My guys were going to get rid of it. They were telling me they wanted to get rid of it. And I was like, what are you, crazy? They're going to let us do this. We should take advantage of it and do it. And never not do it.
Well, not just cannabis, other companies are going to continue to keep it as a service too.
That just changed with what happened.
Well, the Lantern delivery service and all the other internal delivery services too, we've really changed within the last couple of months, within the last maybe 24 months. I mean, completely changed the way that we deliver cannabis. Remember how it used to be such a super secret transaction that had to be all video recorded and everything had to be? Now with adult use, they're like, hey, you got an ID? Okay. It's like buying liquor now. No record of the transaction. Nobody takes your thing. Nobody scans anything. You just are.
I totally see in the future, like getting my weed through a drone. A drone will just come and bring me my weed. That'd be awesome.
How about like the equivalent of an ice cream truck?
Yeah, there you go.
Good humor.
I want the Ed Rosenthal mobile, the guru of ganja mobile.
You hear some reggae from down the street. It's on its way.
Hey, well, wait a second.
Good humor truck.
Tell him, Rhory. Tell him what the thing would have to sell as well as the cannabis.
I can't hear you, Ed.
Tell him what the cannabis truck would have to sell as well as cannabis if we were making deliveries through the neighborhood.
Uh-oh. You're not talking hot dogs, are you?
From Ed Rosenthal? That's a good question.
Yep.
Hot dogs?
Yep.
Hot dog?
Yes, people get stoned, they eat the hot dogs?
Dope and dogs.
Dope and dogs. All right, so I know a guy with a Volkswagen bus that turns into a hot dog stand, and he grills hot dogs on it.
Make them out of
just add dope.
Meat.
Just add dope, right? Bring Ed Rosenthal with you.
Call him the incredible.
Literally, you could medicate condiments and put them on there. So,
Uncle Stoner, thank you for joining us, man. I really appreciate it.
Ed, very good weed.
Ed,
we'll talk to you soon. We'll have you back on soon.
It's about the rain, so I have to pack everything up and go inside.
Oh, I feel
sorry. I want to feel bad for you. I really do.
Roughing it out there.
Catch a wave, Bobby.
Bless.
Yeah.
Put
your shirt up.
Thanks for joining us, man. We'll have him back on.
Yeah. Yep.
He's one of the people who requested coming on today because he wanted to connect with Ed. He said, I've known Ed for 20 years. I want to come on, say hi, and talk about some stories.
So nice.
He would have said anything to get on here.
Yeah, he just wants a little extra exposure. That's right. And to rub in that he's hanging out in Jamaica.
That's all what it's about is Jamaica. Yeah. Trust me. Every
morning.
It
rubbed.
Good
Consider
morning
it
from
rubbed.
Jamaica.
He rubbed it in. It was nice. I'm so happy for him. So happy for him.
Oh my God.
He's been in the Marley house where they wrote the Three Little Birds song. He's actually been on that doorstep where the birds were and all that stuff.
Truth be told, if he was in town, I'd be hanging out with him a couple of days a week. So the reality is that I miss him.
Hey, Debra, you were going to say something.
I just saw a scary banner across the TV in our walkthrough thing. It said the organizers of the protest, the riot, claimed that 3 members of Congress were guiding them in the organization of this thing.
Oh, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Look, they mentioned today on CNN that there's a real concern that some of the incoming Republican legislators not be allowed to have access to Pelosi, not be allowed to have access to Pence or Biden during this transition ceremony, the swearing in, because they are QAnon supporters, and there's no telling what they could do.
Yeah.
That's scary shit.
It's really scary shit.
I mean, they also revealed that they don't go through the regular check. They don't go through magnetic detectors. Any congressman or senator could be carrying a weapon, and they're never checked for it. Not like other people are. So we don't know who's packing and what they got.
That's ridiculous.
That's why one of the concepts of banning firearms at the Capitol is kind of nonsensical when you allow firearms in the Capitol. But
signs are banned, right? Isn't that ridiculous?
Signs are banned, right? Signs are banned.
You can have a clock, but you can't have a sign that says cop.
Signs are dangerous.
It's obvious.
Words are dangerous.
It's obvious that
Signs don't kill people.
It's obvious that some of the police that were at the that were there were actually helping the riot.
Two were fired. One that was wearing a MAGA hat with one, and another one was taking a selfie with some of the guys.
Yeah, but it was deeper than that.
Much deeper than
way deeper than much deeper. I would totally agree. I would totally agree, because anytime you hear anything about these underground, website things or this internet shit going on, it's always a bunch of cops and ex-military people mixed in with these people. Always. I mean, these people are trained. It's a certain mentality that goes for that type of job.
One of the more interesting, I find interesting about this group of people is many of them have tattoos that literally mark them. And when I was in prison, you would see prison guards who would wear their shirts up high enough so that you could see their whatever.
It's a warning to you, right?
But you don't have to. You got they can have video evidence of these motherfuckers.
But right, that's the point, is that these people showed this stuff. They showed their faces. They're not that stupid, or maybe they are, or maybe they really believed in what they were doing, and they didn't realize that there wasn't a large enough crowd behind them to get anything done.
Yeah. You live in a bubble. You think everybody's on the same wavelength as you on those sites.
Well, it was an agitated mob who was whipped to a frenzy by political leaders who they trusted implicitly, and those kind of people don't bring the implements of revolution because they never planned on it. They got whipped into a frenzy, and that's what happened.
Hey Ed, what do you got? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Ed.
Yeah, that's trying to get something.
There was this woman on being interviewed who had been maced. And she said, I can't believe they maced me.
Yes,
and they said, well, what were you doing? And she said, well,
she was holding the onions.
I was just taking a shit in the hallway.
Right.
So
she brought measures to fix her eyes, so she knew she was going to be maced.
No, wait a second. She said, well, I was climbing into the window. And they said, and the commentator asked her, well, you knew you weren't supposed to do that. She said, this is the revolution.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They believed it.
Patriotically and bravely climbing to the window, and they had the nerve.
She's lucky she didn't get shot. She's lucky she only got maced. Another woman got shot. You start busting through windows, but someone's going to shoot your ass.
I think they should allow these protesters, but everybody should have to be in blackface.
Blackface.
I want to ask Ed a question about revolution, because we're all
then they'll, it doesn't matter that they're acting, they'll see that, the guards will get rid of them.
Oh, you're saying so that they'll be shot.
Hello?
Right. Yeah, we get it.
Okay.
He's right. Here's my question for Ed, though, because I've known Ed a long time. He's been involved in the weed game.
Looks like Mike is trying to talk.
Mike Whitty, you're on mute, my friend.
Unmute yourself.
But
I just want to know if Ed thought that we would be where we're at today in the weed game at this point. I mean, I know you'd been working on it a long time.
Well, I don't want to date myself, but I will. But I was in my apartment on the Lower East Side in New York in 1968, and a bunch of us were there and saying, "How long do you think it will be legal before it will be legal?" People have varying things, and one person said it won't be legal for 20 years. Now that would have been 1988, and people said, "How? Why would it be so long?" He said, "Well, by that time, a lot of us will be in responsible positions and be running things, and the law will be changed." So, in 68, people thought 20 years was a long time. they didn't realize that it would take 50 years and it still isn't done.
We should try to get try to get more of our Californians to dialogue with Michigan like today with Ed, and we'll strengthen our own hand and shorten that timeline for our kids and grandkids. So we have a little freedom and liberty and to relax more safely with cannabis than other ways to relax. So I'm glad that you got the show here together with Ed, and we would bring, Ed, help us bring some more interesting Californians to dialogue with these interesting Michigan people.
Right on. And Ed, it might be a connection thing for a second. There you go.
I was about to say, where'd you go, Ed?
Yeah. So Ed, what are your thoughts on the this year in Washington, given Biden and the victory in Georgia? Are we expecting any substantive movement in cannabis legalization anytime soon?
Well, I think there are two things. I think one is that it doesn't matter what Biden thinks about it, that the law will be changed. That's one thing. And then the second thing is that I think I don't think Biden is going to serve for a full 4 years. I think he's going to resign after 3 years. And one of the first, and Harris, if Biden hasn't done it, in that year, Harris will make it legal.
And then Harris is then an incumbent, so to speak. It might be set
That's
up for
right.
for going for the next term.
You're saying that Biden's gonna what? Resign?
Resign after 3 years, and then the control will then be taken over by Kamala Harris.
Now that's intriguing because you can be elected twice, but you can serve longer than that if you end up taking the appointment by choice or by death, right? So
well, yeah,
give
because
Kamala an opportunity to
she'd serve 9 years if
Right.
her maximum she could serve would be 9 years.
Yep, the two 4-year sentences or sentences, 2 4-year term,
No,
but also the 1 year that she would have in your hypothetical if Biden left after 3 years. Yeah,
that is interesting.
One more reminder.
If he lasts 3 years.
Today's New York Times front page story leads me to still believe that we might be facing the religious right taking over the country in 24. They say that this Christian conservatism is at the core of the chants and the ideology of the militia extremist groups. They've wrapped themselves in Jesus, and that's their driving force. And we really see that in Michigan. The evangelical right can swing these Republican primaries and produce nominees. This woman who ran the 12 buses into Washington from Milford is the co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party. And they got to find a woman to take on.
Well, the thing is, most, like, I'm not saying I'm encouraging this, but the further right they go, the more people they lose. Like, let's say the vote were held today. Do you think that he would get 75 million votes?
Not at all.
Well, in 4 years,
I don't think so.
More votes.
Not after what you just saw. Not after what you just saw.
He lost 20 million votes, minimum 20 million.
There are people that do not support that, and they don't care what their party says. That was offensive to them, and it should be. I mean, it is.
We're seeing the Republican Party undergoing some significant changes. They're splintering. Remember under GW? Go ahead, Adam.
I'm sorry. I just want to say this because I'm not praising the man. I just know he said it because I heard him say it. And long before he ran for office, Donald Trump said, as a lifelong Democrat, he said, if I choose to run for president, I will run as a Republican and I will destroy the Republican Party. And in my opinion, unlike the last time the Republican Party saw an internal coup with the, whatever we called them back in the day, the Tea Party folks, this internal coup in the Republican Party is splintering. I mean, it's earth-shattering. And I'm shocked that from beginning to end, the guy told every lie he could. But the one thing I remember him saying is that he destroyed the Republican Party, and he has.
I don't think he actually ever said that. Like I've seen it around. I don't think he's actually on record for saying that though.
And the Republican Party is not destroyed. It got 74 million fanatics.
No. But they wouldn't get that today. Is the point? Post what happened, that party's got real problems.
Well, it does have real problems, but there's a huge cult of Trump right now, and that exceeds the party lines. There may be people that run from the Republican Party but still keep their Trump loyalty. And there's a lot of people whose distrust in government originates from the Trump situation, and that distrust will persist until they are in the grave and will affect their children and their friends and anybody else that gets a chance to listen to them postulate.
There it is, in a nutshell.
That quote is false.
You got it. Yeah.
Berg says the quote is false. What do you got, Berg? You got a source on that?
Oh yeah, it says it's false.
I swear
they're trying to say it's from an article back from People magazine in 1998 that Republicans are the dumbest group of
Yeah, they would believe anything he said, so he would just tell them anything.
It's false. Yeah.
I mean, don't forget, this guy didn't have to kill anybody on Fifth Avenue. He did it on the Capitol.
Washington.
Well, and he also did it by a very miserably failed response to the
everyone
pandemic.
On this call, every one of you on this call knows some countercultural. I'm thinking of Dr. Bob's traffic at his little cafe. All of us know some kind of countercultural, new age, alienated person who's solid for Trump thinking, even well past Trump's departure. They're just alienated from life itself. They're beaten down. They're distrustful of every form of authority, ipso facto. And
easy belief that it isn't true.
They come from our ranks too. They're not just the
Oh no, they're everywhere.
Yes.
So hey, it's we're starting to get toward the end of the hour here, and probably the descent into ending the show should begin. And we have a lot of people here, so if there's some final thoughts to be had,
let's start with Ed. Yeah,
and also contact information, Ed, and anything else pertinent to what you have going on with your book and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say it was a pleasure being on the show. I thought it was very interesting and thought-provoking, and I hope I get invited back. And anybody who wants to check out some of my stuff, they can just go on Google and they'll see my website and other sites.
Right on. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more to the history and a lot more discussion, and we would definitely love to have you come back on the show and speak more with us on this stuff.
So as an open forum, anybody want to contribute some final thoughts? Not everyone has to, but if you'd like to, this is a good time.
I would just say,
you have to put somebody on the spot. No,
Colin's got it.
I was unmuting my mic. I was just going to say, check out the Entheo show. Our first episode came out on Friday. It's up on YouTube and on our Facebook. And check out our website. Also, check out Decriminalized Nature Detroit and Decriminalized Nature Grand Rapids. And yeah, look forward to hearing things from us in the Entheo show and Decriminalized Nature Michigan.
Good job. Mike Whitty, you always have some positive final words to say about what's going on and how we can network together and it can all be kumbaya.
We can all contribute to a united front to protect our friends in Lansing and curb the amount of military action in Lansing or DC or worldwide. This world fundamentalism is too caught up in false beliefs and hatred. And I'm confident we're going to make it. I think that our movement's going to get through in the first term and we'll have some good results. We kind of have to work quietly on the margins, as everybody's said, because of the big spectacular stuff going on. But we can move things along. We got a good chance of getting things descheduled in the first term. I'm optimistic. And I would like to leave you with the phrase, free the weed.
Nice job.
Hey,
Nick, you were just in Washington, D.C. Nick Zettell was just in Washington, D.C. You got to look at Students for Sensible Drug Policy and what's going on nationally. Do you have some final thoughts and maybe some insight to share?
Unfortunately, no insight. But I will say just that I did go to DC shortly before the new year, and had the opportunity to walk around the mall, which I really do think is a spectacular, space and everything. But I was there at night. It was a full moon, and I have this picture of the full moon above the Washington Monument, and you could even see stars, the reflecting pool. It just, was kind of like iconic DC, and I was just astounded at how peaceful it looked. And that was, December 29th, and then, not even 10 days later, it was, a very different scene. But that's all I really have, is that I was, impressed by how peaceful it was, but also, pretty horrified by the juxtaposition there.
Well, I guess that's a good thing for us to remember. No matter how peaceful and sound and safe we are, the terrorists would like us to believe that we should always have fear in our hearts, that they can come and strike at any time. Don't let them take over. Berg and Rhory, do you have anything to contribute?
Oh, where'd I go?
Oh, shit.
Don't worry, you're still here. Keep going.
No, all of a sudden my screen just...
Jamie's messing around with stuff.
Showing his new logo. That's so cool.
Uh-huh.
There we go.
There we go.
I meant to cue that up and then put that on later. I apologize.
Nice job.
Keep going. Beautiful logo, but not necessary right now. Keep going. Sorry about that.
Rhory, did you want to?
There's nothing really I could add.
Okay. How about you, Berg?
Thanks a lot, man, for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jimmy, for having me.
Berg, you got some?
Everybody, go to Medical Mondays podcast on YouTube. Subscribe. Check us out every Monday, 9 p.m. Thanks again, Ed, for taking the time out to join us today.
Yeah, and the last Medical Mondays was great, man.
Once again, thank you for having me.
Take a look at it. Mr. Hashbash, your turn.
Oh, I just want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank Ed for requesting my presence. That was kind of cool. I've known Ed since 1988. And, when I was contacted about doing the show, I was like, man, I just remember Ed was at one of the greatest things that I ever saw happen at Hash Bash. And it was just after a guy had grabbed the microphone from John Getman, and we wrestled the microphone back, and Ed was the next speaker up, and the crowd was fired up. And Ed basically said, we're not going to take this shit anymore. And I fell in love with the guy. So I've known him a long time, and it was an honor to be here with him. And it's always fun to hang out with you guys.
Well, Debra, if you can come back, it's your turn. We'd like to hear from you. But if not, we'll just enjoy the picture. Here she is.
Enjoy the picture.
Just enjoy our collective packages.
Yeah. It was another great show. I think that we're doing some really legendary interviews here, Rick. So, some of this stuff is really good material. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. Looks like they're going to impeach Trump tomorrow. I just saw Liz Cheney saying that she will vote to impeach the prominent Republican. So that's going to be very interesting. I'm going to be watching that most of the day tomorrow. And hopefully we move on. We get this shit taken care of. We clean up this mess and start concentrating on some federal cannabis law reform.
So
it's true that we live in historic times. Go ahead.
So if they impeach him, then he can get a pardon.
Yeah,
that's potentially true. Yes.
Yeah,
if he gets convicted, they might hold off. They might hold off on the Senate side.
Pardon him.
Did
can't
you see that he was going to issue a blanket pardon for the rioters and pardon himself?
Boy.
I mean, this could get really weird.
Yeah, look, we got to end the
Honestly.
show, but there's so much we could talk about. We have to end the show. So thanks very much to Ed for joining us. Thanks for our guests, Nick Zettell, Colin MacDougall, Mike Whitty, of course, Derek Gauci, Berg, Rhory Gould, Debra, Mr. Hashbash, Adam Brook, Jamie Lowell, myself, Rick Thompson. We had Shelly Smith on here also, and we also had Bobby West on earlier, Uncle Stoner. Jamie, take us home.
Yep. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. I really appreciate your participation. There are many other shows. I want to point out Rick's on 420 Post on Wednesdays. There's Planet Green Trees, Medical Mondays, as Berg mentioned, Reeds and Weeds, and the new NTO show, Smoking Rope. And everybody pay attention to those things and come back and join us here on on the Jazz Cabbage Cafe. And we'll have everybody back on for updates here throughout the year, and really appreciate your participation. Ed Rosenthal. Everybody have a great night. Jazz Cabbage Cafe.
Take care, everybody.
Night.
Take care, everybody.